Okay, so following my introduction to the life and work of Evelyn Underhill, I'll now turn to the books of hers which we hold in the library collection. As noted, formidable though her scholarship is, they are all guided and shaped by a deep contemplative practice and a rich sacramental life embedded in the customs of the Church. Not for nothing did the Times Literary Supplement, in its review of Worship, describe it as a masterpiece of the spiritual life. Now, Worship, which we have here, was published in 1936 and, as the name implies, is her study of the full variety of the Christian ritual and liturgical encounter with God. It unpacks its historical circumstances, ranging over 2,000 years of development and practice. The inward dynamic is grasped and interpreted, giving the clearest vision of the ultimate redemptive focus of worship on the deliverance of the soul. The general introduction to the work notes that at this time, the Christian Church is confronted with a great, though largely silent, crisis, in the form of the anxiety and perplexity caused by the suffering of the First World War and the way that the old certainties of the Church had been shaken. The work therefore seeks to explore the primary realities of man's relationship to God. The book was published as part of the Library of Constructive Theology, as you can see embossed rather nicely on the front cover there. And this is the first edition. It was purchased by Bromley House shortly after its publication in 1936. It's a rather scholarly work, but was frequently borrowed in the first few years when we had it, and has been borrowed periodically since then, in a way that quite a lot of the collection works in the theology collection haven't been. Now, unfortunately, the library does not have a copy of Evelyn Underhill's other major work, the acknowledged masterpiece, Mysticism, from 25 years earlier than Worship. However, we do hold a copy of The Mystic Way, which was published 2 years later in 1913. So this was before the First World War. This is a kind of beginner's guide to the ideas laid out in mysticism. So this is our copy of The Mystic Way. Again, it's a rather nice book. It's got this embossed kind of almost Art Nouveau style pomegranates and butterfly design on the front. And on the spine, we have the pomegranate again. So here we are. Title page of The Mystic Way, which also is rather beautiful. Interestingly, the motto on the frontispiece of The Mystic Way here is, "Sister, I hear the thunder of new wings." Now, in the age of suffragism, this reference to a woman's role in spirituality is telling and quite interesting. This book too is a first edition, although we don't know when it was acquired by the library, as it doesn't have an issue slip in the front, as many of our older books don't. This book acknowledges other traditions as well as Christian tradition, Oriental, Neoplatonic, and even the Mohammedan or Islamic tradition. Its basic premise is an acknowledgement that contemplation is Christian and is indeed deeply congruent with the life of Christ. It traces a contemplative life at the heart of the Church. In these two texts, therefore, is Underhill's exposition of the contemplative life, with historic detail and examples, written primarily for a lay audience. She gives details of leading figures and exemplars of the life right up to modern times, and includes Protestant as well as Catholic figures. Steve suggests that these two books, The Mystic Way and Worship, were closely shaped by her practice as a retreat leader and teacher. She built her own chapel and retreat centre at a place called Pleshy to provide a location where people could find the peace and conditions conducive to meditative practice. She spent nearly 2 decades there on her retreat work. It may also be the case that these works were shaped by her experience as one in receipt of spiritual guidance, and by no less a figure than the influential modernist theologian Friedrich von Hugel.